let's say that you're out on
Vaush,
the
I'm
town.
here to debate capitalism and socialism.
I
Right?
would love to. I'd love to as well. I
that.
didn't realize
All
that
right.
I was working with a person who didn't use words the way that I use them. So I'm trying to fix that.
No.
0% of you are subscribed. Fix that.
All right, let's get ready to rumble! Good evening, envies of all ages. Standing in the red corner, representing socialism and weighing in at 170 pounds, Vaush, Vaush, representing capitalism, weighing in at 5 ounces, Boss Dog Diot.
So nobody is satisfied with the world as it exists. Everybody wants to make some improvements, and everybody wants to make those improvements in certain ways. I believe that that which I advocate for principally, that is to say selective decommodification and for market socialism, worker cooperatives, are incredibly empirically defensible. We know there are issues with American healthcare. We know there are issues with the decentralization of transportation networks that can be fixed with government intervention. Now, you said that you do not want the government to walk in and completely seize control of private life, and I could not agree with you further. It is freedom which I am principally concerned with. It is through freedom which I believe equality can be gained. Market socialism at its core is essentially a government-facilitated operation of worker cooperatives across the breadth of the economy, that the government expects this be the standard. And I'll wrap up with this. I think that in 100 years, economic democracy will be that point where we look back on the past and smack our foreheads and say, why didn't we do that sooner? Right.
So what I don't understand is how you can write off the social democracies in one sense. When you say, for example, that they are sinkhole, that basically in your discussion with Hakeem in February, or rather in January of this year, you said these cannot work unless they depend upon, unless they benefit from foreign exploitation. I mean, that is your position, is it not?
Right, of course. Capitalism necessarily relies on some economic underclass. You have it domestically with slaves, or you have it abroad with sweatshop workers, but it has to exist somewhere.
How can you make the argument that, first of all, that sweatshop workers are in any way comparable to slaves?
Well, in the
First
sense
of all,
that they're
absolutely, I mean, you got to think about what it is you're comparing to. You've got to think about what the best alternative is. If private employment in a factory is still the better alternative to what existed before, that foreign investment is not some kind of slavery. I'll absolutely bite the bullet on this.
I didn't say, I didn't say it was slavery, and it's certainly the case that sweatshops are preferable to subsistence farming. No, I said that it was an economic underclass, and I stand by that point. Whereas before, we were able to have the worst jobs done by people who were sold and bought as chattel. Nowadays, we ship off the worst jobs to places that have lower standards of labor and lower minimum wages. That's absolutely, undeniably how this works. You can get more money, you can exploit more wealth out of the labor of sweatshop workers than you can out of union-enrolled American factory workers. That's why we do it. That's why we move these jobs overseas, isn't it?
Absolutely. And yet the people who receive those jobs are still benefiting comparable to what they would otherwise have. Mutually beneficial relationships.
Well, the myth of mutually beneficial relationships relies on the assumption that there's no implicit coercion in an economic transaction. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible for two entities to benefit from a transaction, but the way in which that transaction is taking place begets not only a disproportionate benefit from one side, but also with one side controlling the terms of that engagement. So, for example, the United States of America, or if we want to talk broadly, Western capitalist countries, have an overwhelming amount of economic power globally, which we wield through institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. Now, is it preferable to have sweatshop labor instead of subsistence farming? In most cases, yes. Not always. There's nuance there, but often, yes. But that doesn't mean there wasn't a better alternative. Much in the same way that it is entirely possible to take a starving orphan in from the street and feed them nothing but peanuts.
I don't see how you can say that that a power imbalance can be coercion, because power imbalances, one, exist throughout all life. You know, there are always imbalances of resources, or always imbalances of power. You know, in a situation like that, no.
Is that coercive?
No. You are doing something to make somebody feel like they are in fear of violence.
I have never met a person who used the term coercion in the way that you do. And in fact, the way you're using it is, in my mind, so objectively incorrect This is
And you
reaching the
can-
point
yeah.
where I actually wonder if you're engaging in like a bad faith argument, because you know that if you acknowledge that coercion can involve like an unfair power dynamic between two individuals or two entities, that you would have to bite the bullet in a lot of my other arguments.
I don't bite the bullet. I'm not being bad faith. You basically pointed out that there are a lot of other people who accept an inconsistent definition of
It's
coercion.
not
What I'm saying
inconsistent.
is
It's
that there's a
wait,
difference
just because
between
you don't
imbalance and
understand
power
it doesn't mean it's
relations and
inconsistent.
coercion, right? No, just because I'm
What's the
proposing a
inconsistency?
consistent definition here.
Bastian.
Your idea of coercion depends entirely on the situation and has no
On
objective
power
reality.
dynamics.
And that
On
is why you
power
come to a
dynamics.
situation. Yeah, power dynamics, right? So you're saying basically that the ridiculous conclusion that you get out of the examples you keep providing is that if a loan or that if the IMF shows up and says, we will give you $100 million if you decide to follow some conditions that we will not force you to do, but we will give you $100 million. Well, hey, that's coercion.
Were
On one level,
Weinstein's victims
in
coerced?
reality here,
Couldn't they have just like left?
Vaush, what if you
Your
wanna talk about
definition of
examples here-
coercion is empty, Bastiat. Nobody is stupid enough to believe the definition the way you're using it. It's power dynamics, and you keep claiming that it's
ridiculous.
inconsistent. How is it inconsistent?
The inconsistency of the definition of coercion
Why
that
are
you
you
use
so mad?
leads to, at least, first of all, you've accused me of being bad faith several times here. When I'm
Wait, you were
explaining
mad
a
before
definition,
then. First of all, it was
differs-
one. Second of
differs
all,
what you mean.
you were mad
All right?
before then. Come on, you were mad
There's nothing
before then.
here. And if you're going to resort to "you're mad" because I basically
No,
cornered you
you're
on the fact,
actually
I
shouting
cornered you
over
on the
me.
fact.
It's
I
not-
cornered you. First of all, right, let's cool off for a little bit here because you've started to get mad, bringing up ridiculous examples like Coconut Island or rape this or rape that, whereas I'm making a simple point to you that fundamentally the idea that coercion means just a power imbalance of any kind, right, is a ridiculous definition that means nothing.
So let's say you're out in the town, you want to get your dick sucked, as we all, I mean, as one does.
Okay,
You know.
Vaush.
And, wait, no.
Is this
I
capitalism and
genuinely,
socialism?
no, hold on. I genuinely need an answer to this because
Okay,
you
is this
reject
praxis?
the
Is this how you're
degree
going to
to
implement
which
socialism in the world is through one
the de-
ridiculous dick sucking
the
example after the
degree
next?
to well,
I mean, that shows how
if
empty
we-
the ideas you've got are.
that has
You
nothing
haven't
to do.
proposed anything in response yet, other than to fixate on the idea that what I proposed here, that the IMF offering a loan is the same as Harvey Weinstein raping somebody in their
So
office.
we're
And it's
going to try to
ridiculous.
get to that. If we actually can sit still, we'll find a way to connect these ideas.
What do
So
you mean sit still?
we're
I've been
gonna
trying to
move-
go back to trade for the last 10 minutes,
We're
and you
gonna
keep
move
wanting to talk
away.
about people getting their dicks sucked.
We're going
It's
to move away
ridiculous.
from the term coercion. Let's say that you're out
Gosh,
on
I'm
the
here to
town.
debate capitalism and socialism.
I
Right? And if
would
you want to talk
love
about
to.
capitalism and
I'd love
socialism,
to as
we
well.
can do
I
that.
didn't realize
All
that I
right?
was working with a person who didn't use words the way that I use them. So I'm trying to fix that.
No.
So let's say you're out in the town and you want to get your dick sucked. You find a homeless person. They don't look well, and you toss $100. You toss 520s on them, and you say, "Hey, those are yours if you suck my dick." So you don't think that's coercive because it's a trade, blah blah. Do you think there's anything wrong with that exchange?
In terms of like that being morally wrong, no. Somebody has traded $100 in exchange for an act. Both parties are consenting. Both parties are better off. But then again, I mean, if your belief is that fundamentally social democracy is exploitative of the entire
Wait, hold on. We're
world
almost
and
there. We're almost there. We're almost there.
I
We're almost there. We're almost
suppose
there.
throwing somebody $100 is at least a domestic
We're
harm alone.
almost there. So
Right.
you don't think it's morally wrong. So
Sure.
would you agree then that even if an exchange between two entities of different power levels led to a benefit for both sides, that there may be still some underlying thing there, some cause to that imbalance that might be worth addressing?
Sure. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that you believed there was something wrong with the fact that developing nations have to rely on these systems. But you do, so now we can move forward.
Right? No.
I feel like you're not paying attention to what I'm saying. I don't know why you keep retreating to the straw man. Now, I like the idea of a world where the countries we trade with do so only because they want to, not because they have to. Is that not a good world?
It's like you're saying that anybody who signs an agreement with the IMF is basically being exploited and that they are too dumb to negotiate something.
No.
Better, right?
Wait, now you're doing full-on conservative memes here. Hold on.
Instead, these are countries that have agency, right? I mean, these are countries that have agency, that are capable of making decisions for themselves about what economic systems, what economic
I'm
programs
not saying
are best
they
for
don't
them.
have agency.
And that's what they're doing.
Okay,
right?
so let's go back to the example. I unironically don't know if you're following what I'm saying here. When we talk about the homeless person who sucks your dick, we agree, well, I don't think it was good, but you say that's fine. However, there's something miserable underlying it.
Yeah.
Okay, so even if we acknowledge, and I don't know why you keep returning to this straw man that I don't like global trade. I am not saying that nobody has ever benefited from an IMF loan. I'm saying that there are examples we can look at to see that countries develop further if they aren't reliant on that system. Not global trade. Global trade is good, but on IMF loans, neoliberalization, keeping wages and keeping labor rights low. So that is the reason. And wait, because we've been on this entire time. I don't think we've even talked about socialism yet.
A mutual exchange that benefits both parties in different ways. For example, if these countries didn't have
buy that premise.
That they don't benefit both parties in different ways.
The idea that that's like the nature of global trade. Global trade is just an expression of national power.
Why would countries engage in global trade if they both didn't think they would benefit?
For the same reason a student would suck their teacher's dick for a better grade. Lovey-dovey socialist hippy-dippy. Now, down the line, I would love it. I would absolutely love it if we could get some kind of state promotion of these ideas, like, for example, subsidies, or maybe banks could be encouraged to give preferable loan interest rates to worker cooperatives, because right now it's the opposite that's the case. A lot of banks are unwilling to loan to worker cooperatives because they're kind of considered like an outlandish system, even though mathematically they tend to pay back their returns much more reliably. But if it's to happen, it should be from the people, for the people, not because the Vaush party has achieved power and I want to flex. To me, this is an extension of democracy. To me, the government democratizing these workplaces is comparable, not identical, but comparable to the dissolution of slavery, in the sense that the government is stepping in and they're saying, all right, I get that, quote unquote, this is your property, but no, 5-check failed. And, we do what we can with that.
But what I don't understand is why you would draw a comparison there with slavery and a worker co-op.
At the time, they did think that slaves could be property. And obviously, I think that was wrong. And I think, and I do genuinely believe this, heart of hearts, that 100 years from now, the idea that a person could own a facility in which they do not work, but in which others work, that to me will seem, again, not to the same extent. Slavery is obviously much worse, but in a comparable way, a similar kind of, wow, we really let people get away with that. There is a fundamental absurdity to the process if you think about it for long enough. The idea that some individuals, I guess the easiest example would be the monarchy. They own these vast swaths of land. And the concept of ownership in that respect is entirely arbitrary. There's just these sections of a planet that belong to them, even though they will never visit them, they will never touch them or smell the air above them. These things matter only insofar as we say they matter. And I think that a system where ownership has more to do with one's personal relationship to a property than who bought it first would be a better one.
I can see the emotional argument that you might be making, that, it feels unfair. It may feel unjust, but I mean, the way it feels compared to the
I think it is unjust. It's not a feeling argument.
Seems irrelevant in the sense that it is unjust. And basically you're saying that people making contracts with one another, that's fundamentally unjust, it's fundamentally unfair. And again, I don't acknowledge that.
Wait. When did I say that making contracts is fundamentally unjust?
That's employment. That's a workplace. Somebody agrees to trade resources for somebody's labor.
You're doing it again. This is reductive to absurdity. Just because I think some types of contracts are coercive or exploitative, just because I think some labor relations produce bad human outcomes, doesn't mean that I am principally opposed to the idea of a contract. I want better power relations. I want equal power relations, or at least as close to equal as we can reasonably get. The anarchist dream is the dissolution of unjust hierarchy.
What I'm saying here is you're saying that if I refuse the democratization referendum, you will use the police to force me to democratize my enterprise, right?
Yeah, that's how law works. So do I support legal ways of making the world better in my eyes through my arguments? Yes, of course I do. But everybody believes this.
To deny that this is force when the state uses violence to compel you to make a decision as a result of an election.
It sounds like a conservative argument where I would say something like, I think the government is okay to tell corporations that they can't deny service to a person because they're black. And then the conservative would say, so you're okay with using force to silence my free speech. Now, technically, that's true. What I said is technically me using the force of the state to prevent another person from what would otherwise be a lawful exercise of their business rights. But I think it's reductive because it's trying to characterize my argument as authoritarian, which I believe it's anything but. I'm advocating for democracy here.
If you're going to duck out of the idea that seizure of property is force.
No, hold on, wait. No. So to be very clear, I'm not backing out of that. I don't know if you're listening to me. What I said is technically me using the force of the state. On a fundamental level, I believe our current system of private property ownership is immoral.
I'm not trying to say you're a secret tanky.
We have the votes and they're in, making Vaush the hippy-dippy champion.
I think I'm going to be taking this to court. Seems to me like the votes were rigged. I look forward to investigating all of this until we can figure out how I actually won.
Stop the steal.
All right?
Stop the
Stop
steal.
the steal.
Cunties.
Yeah, you're right.